I used to work in secular radio. Me and
Okay.
Sean, we
Mm-hmm.
used to work at 107.9 in Atlanta for Radio One,
Yeah.
Urban One now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in sales and promotions, and he was in web graphic design.
Okay.
And we went to a concert one night. We went to uh, the Birthday Bash. It's the largest hip hop conference on our festival in the Southeast, and it
Mm-hmm.
occurs every June of the year. And so we were at Birthday Bash, and we saw that the music was just destroying a whole generation of people. Like we were like, okay, you know what? The music is toxic. Kids are
Mm-hmm.
listening to it. It's crazy that that we don't have an alternative for this.
Mm-hmm.
And my best friend, who's a pastor, I got in his car one day and he gave me a Lecrae CD. He was like, "Man, listen to this guy," and I was like, "All right." And I heard it, and I was like, Is he a Christian?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, this is Christian. This is Christian rap." And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, wow." And so I remember having a conversation with Sean about it, like, "Yo, uh, this is crazy. Like, if there's more artists like him, this might
Mm-hmm.
be able to work. This might turn into something."
Yeah.
And so we started saying, you know what? Let's try to figure out if we can make God's music the mainstream and the mainstream the alternative. And that's what we
Mm-hmm.
set out to do. And so this was in 2006. Sean and I fasted for a week, and we came together in his dorm room at Georgia Tech, and we came up with the whole. God gave us the whole vision of Trackstars in that night. We came up with Trackstars, the acronym. We came up with what we were going to do with it, the different branches that we wanted to have. We wanted to focus on radio, television, film. I was a radio, television, and film major. He was a mechanical engineer major. So it was just like, let you know what, you got the software development side, and you got the web graphic design side, and you got the design, aspects, and I like the radio side of things. So let's bring it all together. And so we were just like, yeah, let's figure out how we're gonna start these different divisions. And then
Mm-hmm.
DJ Jeremiah came along, and he had a record label, so that created the music side. I was already tapped into the radio side, and Sean was in film, so we had all
Mm-hmm.
three elements at that time. And we were just like, okay, let's just see what we can do with this. And so we started off with Trackstarz being the radio show, Freedom Music Group being the label, and the radio stations were under my brand, which was called Strong Tower Radio Group.
Mm-hmm.
And then we noticed that in the design was under JDOT, which is the name of the parent company of Trackstarz.
Mm-hmm.
And we noticed that people were getting confused, and Trackstarz had the most traction. And so we were just like, let's just make everything Trackstarz. That makes it easier. So we came together, and in 2006 we put an air check together, and we put it on MySpace, and we
Mm-hmm.
let that thing run for a year, teasing that a radio show was going to be coming. And we didn't know how a show was actually going to form. And so one day I was walking through Barnes and Noble, and I saw my old professor from college. And I said, "Man, I got this radio show idea." And he was like, "Oh man," he's like, "Have you brought it to market yet?" And I was like, "No, I don't have a place." He
Mm-hmm.
said, "Come on, man." He said, "You could hit me up a long time ago." He said, "I can bring you back to the school as a graduate advisor, and you can use the school's equipment to do your radio show." And so I was just like, "Oh man, what would be a great day? I would love to do that." He was like, "Man, students don't get up on Sunday. Just come in on Sunday." And we started doing Trackstarz every Sunday for about a year. And it wasn't long after that that the school signal went down, and we
Mm-hmm.
transformed into AM radio.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's how we got our start. And we knew at that point nobody was really listening to us on AM radio.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weekend signal, and you turn down the signals because you want to turn down the wattage. So
Mm-hmm.
it goes from having a 20-mile radius in the middle of the week to like a 5-mile radius on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew the only person listening was my mom and his mom. And we were just like, all right, man, let's just keep doing this and be faithful, and maybe God will move on it. And I remember going to my pastor and I said, I got this radio show, and I really want it to grow, and I don't know how God is going to move on it. And he said, listen, go home and do everything that I tell you to do for 30 days. He said, send an email to somebody once a day, print up some business cards. He said, and just talk about it. Talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. He said, and watch God breathe on it. And within 30 days, God breathed on it. And we went from 8 listeners overnight to 8,000 in a month.
Wow.
So what happened was we signed a deal with the South.com, which later turned into Jam the Hype.
Okay.
And they picked up our popular segment, which was called Line for Line, and they put it on YouTube. They put it on their YouTube. We put it on YouTube, and they put it on their homepage. And all of a sudden, everybody started tuning in to Line for Line, and that's what we got known by.
Okay.
Yeah.